you need to think 10 years. Like, think 10 years, all right? You won't care. Like, if you think on the 10-year plan, then you won't care that you started your business and then it didn't kind of work out, and then you took a year off being upset at yourself, and then something else happened. You started up again, then you failed again. Like, by year 7, all those failures are part of your story.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're highlighting skills that data professionals use on a daily basis. Plus, we always include some fun bits because we're all nerds here and we love to have fun. So thank you for tuning in, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And as always, folks, happy learning. Today with us, we have Jordan Goldmeier. How are you doing today, Jordan?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
For sure.
We typically start off our episodes by understanding people's origin stories, very comic book-like. Again, we're all nerds. So if you could please tell us about your background and how you got to where you are today in your career.
Okay, so my origin story. How far back can we go? All right.
As far back as you would like.
Okay, so I'll set the scene, okay? I'm 8 years old. I'm at the public library near my place, and I'm in the kids section. And right now I'm very focused on reading books about the paranormal. But the thing is that the computer books and the paranormal books are right next to each other in the Dewey Decimal System. At least, I mean, last time I checked when I was 8. So, I started creeping over, and I really always liked computers, but I never really thought I could get into them. But I was obsessed with this idea, even when I was young. It's like, how do you tell a computer what to do? How is it that I turn it on and then it has a program on it? Like, how does one create that? And so I got this book that was basic programming for the TRS-80. And I didn't have a TRS-80. It was still this was maybe 96-ish. So TRS-80s were at this point, I mean, my dad had one. I think we had one when we were 5. Then we had a Commodore 64. So this was an old computer. I think some people here probably wouldn't even remember Tandy Radio Shack, that was a company at one point that people shopped at and bought computers from. But in any case, I read that book. It was all about just basic programming, and I didn't have anything to test it on, so I just read the code, and I thought it was really interesting. And that's really how I started. That was when I was 10, and then I just kind of kept coding through high school. And then when I got to college, it seemed like all the jobs that were going to coders were going overseas, and Y2K had happened not so recently. And so I decided to get a degree in accounting, and I minored in computer science. And I tried to be an accountant for a little bit, but it's really boring, and it takes a special type of person to enjoy it. And I enjoy helping accountants, but I have no interest in being an accountant,
Yeah.
So I like helping people solve their problems, and accountants have great problems. Very interesting. So, to make a long story short, if you take these two backgrounds, business and coding, it really comes together very easily in Excel. And so I started as an auditor, and then I started doing these things in Excel, like little macros to make my life easier. And everyone's like, whoa, how'd you do that? And there was already this set of macros that someone hadn't updated. Someone made them in the last 7 years, and they hadn't updated them for many, many years. So I went and I updated them. And as a result, I was in Dayton, Ohio. I got flown out to Washington, D.C. I got to present them to the Auditor General there. So it was a big deal for someone who hadn't even graduated from school yet, and was a junior auditor. And that really showed me that people like these skills, but ultimately, I hated being an auditor, and I hated accounting. And so I had to get out. So the next job I had was very focused on just doing Excel programming.
Yeah. So you started programming when you were 10 years old. What was the first programming language that you were learning?
Well, the TRS-80 Basic was the first one I learned, and then my friend, I showed it to my friend, and he's like, "Wait, my dad's got this thing called GW Basic." So he had GW Basic on his computer. So then I started reading GW Basic, so I got to play around with that. And then from there, I found out that QBasic was on every computer, like Windows computer. So then QBasic probably made up a huge portion, up and almost like until I mean, I was still using, like, it was fun then, but I was still using QBasic in college. So no one else was, to be clear on that. But I really was doing a lot of stuff. I just really enjoyed programming QBasic. And then to go from QBasic to Visual Basic 6.0, it's not a huge leap. I've done stuff with that. And then, of course, 6.0 is the basis behind Excel and Word and all the other macro languages. So it really just kind of slid in from there. And then, over the years, I've learned a bunch of others, like Java, C Sharp, some Fortran, some RPG, some COBOL, ones that people would never use.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm like, most of those I have never heard of. So that's really cool that you had such a broad experience with programming languages. I also started off my career in accounting / auditing as well, and I agree it's a little bit boring. However, I started my audit in IT audit. Were you a financial auditor or an IT auditor?
I mean, I don't even know like how to. It's just like I was an auditor for the government. We did an IT audit, but it was like you just looked at regulations. It was more like compliance. Like
Yeah.
um, a lot of stuff was like, did you follow this rule? Everyone else who was training me understood this rule. I was looking at this. I'm like, I don't. I'm like on their team. I'm on the team of the people who we were auditing. I'm like, I don't understand what the hell this is saying. Like, how could someone follow this? So, and I just like people would read these regulations over the weekend, and I tried.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to read the regulations just because the verbiage that's in there, like no
Yes.
one can understand it, even the business that's trying to implement these regulations and follow these compliances. But what I enjoyed was like actually talking with the business and understanding like what do you do on in your daily life and try to figure out what frustrates them and how to fix their frustrations. And it looped always back to Excel.
I mean, that sounds great. That was not my experience. I was a lot more like, do you have these papers? Oh, we have these papers. And then I have to go scan them in and then I have to organize them. And so I'd organize them in Excel. Where we really used Excel internally was like, they had all these or these like workbooks. And so you'd go through and you ask them questions and you have to source your evidence. And so you have to bookmark them. So you bookmark the evidence like in Excel to a Word document. And so they were just going through one by one making these bookmarks. So I had a tool that would auto bookmark, and then I had a tool in Excel that would connect everything. And you could just like import the bookmarks and assign them. Just anything that I thought, what would make someone's life easier? So like a lot of the original macros were just like color this yellow. Instead of hitting the paint button yellow, nothing wrong with that one. But like I really kind of like there are things like you could move a workbook to another location and break all the links. So I developed this thing that used recursion that would go and fix all the links, which was like really nice for a lot of people. Didn't always work, but when it worked, their lives were like, so I really was trying to like there was something the bookmarking thing came to me in a dream. Like I went to sleep and I woke up and like I know what I need to build.
those dreams / nightmares that auditors have, yes, I've totally had those as well.
Well, this is why I don't charge per hour, because I'm like, if you want me to charge you for sleeping, because I'm like, I dream my solutions, so that's up to you.
That's genius. I wonder if anybody does charge for sleeping because they have such vivid dreams of how to solve problems in their sleep.
I hope someone's thought of it.
I hope so too. So you work with companies to use Excel to make them money. So what kinds of problems are you solving for these businesses?
Well, I should say to make them money, like I know I just updated my LinkedIn to say to make money, because I'll add that I'm going to be releasing a course that is going to be about like how to do consulting with Excel so that you can make money. But for these companies, basically, I mean, sometimes money is the objective. Often it's just like, they are doing things inefficiently, and it's not necessarily because they're idiots or anything like that. But the job of the businesses that I support, their job isn't to know Excel. Their job is to run a portfolio of investments. And so many of the people there know Excel, but they don't have enough time to think about the problems or how to fix it, and they don't have enough time to keep up with the Microsoft technology. So what I do is I come in and we really identify how can we streamline your processes. Often it uses Excel, but now we're using other technologies along with it, like Power Apps, things like that. But often it's just understanding their Excel workflow. Even if I'm not showing them exactly how to fix something in Excel, it's I just know that you're doing this inefficiently. Here's how Microsoft would imagine you're doing it, and here's how the way you're currently doing it. So things like that. As well, in terms of the spreadsheets themselves, it's becoming less and less of a problem as RAM is becoming very plentiful on computers, but it used to be spreadsheets would be very slow, so I'd help out with that. Again, a lot as things move to the cloud, as Microsoft rewrites some of these formulas, make them faster, a lot of this is going to disappear. That side of the business, I think. But it used to be just looking at their very complicated models and saying, okay, you're pulling in entire columns. How do we shorten that, right? So you can shorten that to a cell address, but you could even make it tighter, right? Because if you knew what you were searching for and there's a natural index within that list, right? You wouldn't have to search for everything. If you knew it started with N and you kept track of where the N's start, you could just jump. So in that sense, I'm thinking someone who is a computer science person who thinks of big O notation, right? So algorithm is a certain amount of complexity. How can we first get it to that bounded complexity so we understand it, and then how can we really reduce the pieces in it? One example that I used over the years is there was a model that was struggling to resolve to the right number, and they were using GoalSeek, and they were finding that if they just plugged in a number and then got the GoalSeek response, then plugged it back in, got the GoalSeek response, and did that 3 or 4 times, it would resolve, and the model would get the coefficients it needed. So they asked me to can you speed this up? And what I did is I just created a rule that it tried that 4 times. And if it didn't hit that 4 times, it would run GoalSeek, but with a few more optimized parameters. So it wasn't always faster, but 80% of the time it was much faster. Does that make sense? So that's how I think. And now I'm trying to take all these things that I've been implementing in Excel over the years and actually apply them to my real life and to business, and to teach other people how to do that as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of building out templates for folks to use. Would that be fair to say? Using what they're already using?
I mean, I wouldn't say templates so much. I'm just trying, in terms of my consulting, it's really just here are our overall objectives for the year, and then we meet once a week. Are we on track? Here's what we're doing. Here are the things that come up. And then I support them with anything with Excel as well. If they have a question, they can reach out to me. And they're not how to use VLOOKUP. They're things they're more interesting questions than that. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's good.
And then I also they get free access to all my courses and I send them all my books. I make sure that they feel that they have all the resources they need, including my attention, to get what they want. And I should say I have one client right now who I support for a whole year, and I tell everyone else you gotta wait because I that's what I like to do, and they I'm not being bogged down if someone's listening. Well, how are you able to do that? It's because I support one client who I really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good approach. That's fair. Have you had the opportunity to use Python in Excel yet?
I've had the opportunity. I don't really use it a whole lot.
Okay.
I think I'm pivoting away from my data science days. It's not that I dislike Python. It's not like I dislike R. But I'm really focused now on how do I build a business? And so I use Excel in that case to build a business. And that's taking me away from doing the actual work of R and Python. And if someone gave me a project with that today and I accept it, I'd probably hire someone and then manage it. I'm at the point it's weird because people can ask me, I don't do a lot of Python, but they're why is this code not running? I can usually pick it out. So I'm good at that. Picking up code really quickly. But the stuff they're doing in Python today, in terms of data science, it's so far ahead of me. If I wanted to get it, I would have to get a master's degree or spend a lot of time forcing myself to learn a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you're focused heavily in one area, which is always good because then you just become that subject matter expert with Excel stuff.
It's true. And like, I could call myself a data scientist, and I did for many years when it was convenient. And I was like, it wasn't like I wasn't doing data science, I was doing machine learning. But it's more like, now what I've realized in terms of running this business is I don't want to be all things for all people. The data in terms of the content we produce for the LinkedIn is that people love the Excel content. I mean, they love it. They love it more than the digital nomad content. They love it more than the data science content. They very much relate to it. So my focus is to serve that audience. I think that the data science audience, they still like me and they still remember me. And the book, my last book, Becoming a Data Head, is a great book for the budding data scientist. But at the end of the day, that field is advanced far beyond my own knowledge in terms of just sitting down and doing things myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it is moving quite fast.
I mean, when I wrote Becoming a Data Head with Alex has the PhD in math. So he's like a real deal data scientist. I'm just very good at explaining complicated ideas. So we work very well together. And that's allowed me to like put on a data science cap when it comes to explaining certain things, because people really need that. But we wrote in the book about ChatGPT, like this was a new thing that was coming in 2021. But just that, stand back, AI isn't taking over. But since then, I wouldn't say it's taken over, but it's really advanced since we just reflected on it in 2021. I mean, I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a really good skill to have to be able to explain things to people in a clear way.
Yes, I think it's very underrated, and it's something that we keep trying to teach people, but we struggle to do it. So data storytelling is an attempt to do it. I think that the thing that Alex and I did was we took ideas that we had that we knew we had to explain to other people, and we would practice explaining it to each other. And it's not just we did this every once in a while. It's 10 years of this. So by the time we were ready to write this book, we had all amassed all these different conversations where we just and Alex, I just remember the stuff I say, kind of, but Alex really would write it down. He'd write it down, and then sometimes he would say stuff to me. I said I remember, and I'd be like, "Well, that's really good." He's like, "You said it." I'm like, "I did." So, but yeah, he really did keep the archive, and I'll remember things I say over the years. I guess not as well as him, but I think that exercise alone really helped us. And it's not something you're not going to learn that in college, and you're not going to learn it in business. So where are you going to learn it? It's you have to do it on your own.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to nerd out and deep dive into what you mentioned a little bit earlier. Hey nerd, are you looking for a career in data? I would absolutely love to help you out. I just launched a data career strategy program that helps folks break into data without breaking anything. I provided a link in the show notes if you want to learn more information about it. Now, back to the fun bits. You said that people enjoy your Excel content more than your digital nomad content. And you consider yourself to be a digital nomad, and I'm very curious to understand what exactly does a digital nomad do?
So the digital nomad, I mean, this is a great question because it's like defining data scientists. Some people have very strong opinions about what it is and what it isn't. To me, it's just a lifestyle that is defined by my laptop, right? So even though I just moved and I have this great setup, I finally plugged in my extra monitors and stuff. The reality is that I can run this entire business anywhere in the world from my laptop. And this is very significant because it allows me to travel, allows me to really work this business anywhere. I'm just not bounded by time and space in the way that other people are. So that means that I can use my free time and my lifestyle to go to different places in the world, check out different things. I'm going to be volunteering at the Porto Data Makers Fest, which is next week. So that's in Porto, in Portugal. And I'm able to take time off because of my flexible schedule, and I'm also able to work while I'm there because of my laptop. So I can still support clients, and I still can support the conference as a volunteer. Like that to me is what being a digital nomad is all about. Now, there's like a broader thing here about a lot of people find it very minimalist. And it's true, when I moved here, I got rid of everything. I moved here in 2 suitcases, and I've only slowly amassed a few more things. But many of these minimalists come to me and they say, like, they try to talk to me about their minimalism, but they're like running on 1 shirt and a pair of underwear and like a crappy laptop. And I'm way more bougie than that. I'm sorry.
You have to at least have 2 pairs of shirts.
Yeah, right. I mean, just the stuff people are telling me, they're like, will you join my community? It's full, like, we live simply and we do this and we turn off our phones. I'm like, I mean, like, like, it's the whole gamut. It's not all just hippies, but like a lot of people have a very minimalist view of it, and so they don't stay in one place for that long. Like the fact that I have a home base, I guess I have 2 home bases, like Columbus, Ohio, and Lisbon, and I'm trying to develop a home base, as it were, in New York City. Like they don't like that idea that I have bases, I guess, like because they just kind of, some of them will blow with the wind, but some of them are like me and some of them are like them. So that's the whole digital nomad.
Yeah. But with a digital nomad, you mentioned that they turn their phones off. Like, wouldn't you want to leverage your digital abilities?
I don't know how they make money. I don't. I just don't. I don't. Okay. Like, you conceivably, you could work a little bit. You could live in a place where there's just very little, it's very inexpensive to live. So like, Lisbon is less so. I mean, I think it used to be considered more, but now with inflation and more people like me moving in, the prices have gone up. But there are still places in the world where you could really live minimalist, spend very little money, and the little work you do, maybe you do web development a few hours a week, could really support you, and you could live on that if you're minimal.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of skills are you leveraging to make you successful?
I mean, the greatest skill that one needs is like the ability to like just move through things. Like discipline as a discipline. Is that the right way to say that? It's like, is the thing that people need to develop if they want to do this, because there's no bosses. Your time is changing all the time. You need to be able to be someone who can wake up and get your work done. Also take phone calls late at night. If you do good planning and you're disciplined about your planning, you rarely have to do it. But if something comes up, like, you have to support your client. They don't care where you are in the world, and they don't care what you're doing, like that you're at the beach. So having the discipline to get the things done, to be organized, to really like understand that when you travel, things aren't going to work out. I mean, I really enjoy traveling alone, because when I travel with people, they just get worked up over everything. And I actually want to have a very relaxing experience at the airport. I don't see what there is to be upset about. Yes, it sucks that this and that. Oh, Jordan, you don't know, I'm late, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't care. Okay. Like life moves on. I don't know what to say. Like it sucks that you're late, but we're all late and we all have our stories, and you don't have the permission. Like you can't treat people that way and all that. So that's why I don't like traveling with those people. I like doing my own thing, like being efficient. So I think just being someone who is like resilient through these things, who can laugh at things being late, not working out, and also just like the randomness of it all, of the stories that happen when things don't go as planned. Like I tried to move here to Lisbon, and I lost my passport shortly before coming here, so I couldn't complete the visa process. I thought, okay, well, I'll come here anyway. So I got a new passport printed a day before leaving my entire life of New York. Was I stressed? I was stressed. Okay. But if you can look back and you can laugh, but other people look back and they say, well, that was the worst day of my life. Like definitely not the worst day of my life. So I got here, and then I found out, well, no, you have to reapply in your state country. You can't just come here and apply. So I leave thinking, okay, I'll take care of my, visa issues and I'll be right back. So my friend is staying at my place. He's watching my cat. It's only supposed to be a few days. Come back from Lisbon, or come back, go to the US and then come back. Like terrible trip, but hey, get this thing done. So, I go to the embassy or whatever, and they take my passport. Well, first, like they told me, we won't take your passport, like on the phone when they're explaining that I have to come back. So I get there, they're like, okay, don't worry. It's only 3 to 5 days. And it was like 4.5 months. All right. So like I'm like my buddy stuck at this apartment watching my cat. Thank God, like he had a flexible lifestyle too that he could do this, and really he like became a local comedian here. He's like a comedian in Ohio, but he figured the scene out, and like they loved him and they remember him, and like he had a great time, and so it was like very good for him. And I had a lot of life changing experiences while I was stuck in the U.S. I decided to like travel around the U.S. and be a nomad there, but I don't know, like, I mean, it was a lot to handle to not know, like, you can't even call anyone up, like, to say, where's my passport? There's just not that type of thing here, as compared to the US. So I waited 4.5 months and then I got it. And then the ordeal was kind of over. But all sorts of things like that happen when you travel. You book hotels that you miss, you mess up dates, things that like what I do is instead of looking at it and thinking, oh, I'm traveling and I'm an idiot, every like mistake I make, I try to like, I look at and analyze the system and I say, how can I fix it? How can I front run it? What can I tolerate? So you can get good at it.
Yeah. I think data folks, or maybe it's just you and I, work really well in chaos because we look at it through a lens with analysis. You're like, okay, this is what happened. How can we maybe prevent it, or what are the improvement opportunities for the future?
Definitely. And I think that that's like what I would love. This is going to be part of my course as well. I would love for data folks to consider. So I think that some people have been able to make the leap, as you say, that we have. But I think data folks are particularly primed to be people who can do this. But the trick to do it is actually like self-work. Like, again, they're not going to teach you it in school. They're not going to teach you it in business. And even like, okay, you go to a yoga, you go to a therapist, like you still have to do the work to kind of connect it. Like someone can't exactly do that for you. Some people I think are more born with it, but you have to turn it on.
That's very true. What would you say is your most unique experience that you've had in the past that has kind of carved you into what you are today with your skill set?
With my skill set.
With this whole like being comfortable in chaotic situations.
I wouldn't say I was comfortable, but I got used to like being out of control of things and having to like, first when you're out of control, when you're in spaces where you don't fit in socially, you enter your mind, right? So then you get stuck there, but then you have to and you can develop a vivid drama inside your head. And it can allow you to see the world in very interesting ways, but then you have to learn how to turn that off. So going to therapy, I think, helped me turn that off and really take that energy inside and start projecting it outward. How do I fix, like, instead of obsessing about something that's going to happen, how do I actually turn that into something in my life that I can feel comfortable that it won't, and then I can move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about your experience as an EMT? That had to have been somewhat chaotic, yeah?
Yeah, that was very chaotic. I don't know. I stuffed a lot of it down. It was just like,
okay.
Yeah, like it happened, the pandemic happened. So it was like I went from being a volunteer, which was easy, to like, mainly like, cause when you're a volunteer, you take the stuff, at least in New York City, that FDNY is like, they're busy, they're salaried, so they don't make money by doing a run like a volunteer organization does. So, if we came and someone had very minor trauma, someone like one day at the station, we were just getting started and someone just came to our doorstep and was just drunk out of their mind. And they spoke Polish, so I really didn't understand what they were saying. And this was like one of my first runs ever too. And so like, he took him to the ER, and then, so like, I don't know. And then there was a Polish nurse there and she's trying to get him to like say what happened. It was just very hard to figure out what was going on with him. So yeah, keeping your cool in those situations is very important. You just stay laser focused. And then like, I didn't really see a whole lot of like cardiac stuff because I wasn't an EMT for very long until COVID happened. And then everything was just like really picking up a lot of old people, sadly, taking them to the hospital who've been affected. Again, it was just like a very tense situation all over New York. And you just stay focused in those moments. I will say that part of the reason I wanted to become an EMT was because I felt like I was just anxious all the time everywhere. And I just felt like I needed to put it into something positive that could help things out. So like instead of just being anxious all the time, I need to put myself in situations where that anxiety is warranted so that I can actually like have an outlet for it and understand it. I think it was helpful in that way. And also I like helping people, of course.
Yes. You love helping people, and it sounds like you also really love learning new things. It's a question that I like to ask all my guests, and what their approaches are when you're in a situation where you have to learn new things, and what are your like go-to resources?
My view is I just throw myself at it completely. So it's like, someone would say, well, what book should you read? And my view is just read them all. So like, yeah, like in terms of, I wanted to learn, cause I'm traveling a lot and I'm like, I need to have better social skills. Like when I first started traveling, I would just go places, not say a word to anyone. And I just felt in my head, I felt like I wanted to talk to people. I was too anxious. So I started doing classes on that. From everything from, taking classes and having a coach, reading books, understanding honestly the role my Instagram plays in all of that, and meeting people is crazy. Like having a solid Instagram can help you meet people that you've never met in places like in new places and new spaces. So things like that. How to like what questions to ask people when you don't know what to ask. So one of the things is I used to be like, I'm really bad at small talk, and then I read this whole book on small talk. It was like, ask about the weather, ask about logistics, and I'm like, I'm not bad at small talk. I just hate it. It's just like, like I knew all that. I just thought that people were doing something differently. So it's kind of learning to not hate it, or learning to accept that maybe the other person likes it more than I do, but to be comfortable, I don't have to feel anxious in those moments. Things that like, I'll just give a few things that I learned. Just saying, instead of saying, well, where do you work? You could say, how do you like to spend most of your time? So you don't say free time, you just say most of your time. Gives it like just a great opener question. And then if you're talking to people and you can't think of anything to talk about, just ask logistical questions. Hey, you from around here? How long have you lived here? If there's like a rapport building, they're going to take over, and then it'll just become a lot more in flow after that.
Yeah, those are good takeaways. So now you're a famous public speaker at this point, right? You've honed those abilities.
I think so.
Yeah. What are your favorite topics to speak about when you're at events?
Well, historically, I was doing these Excel tutorials at conferences. I'm actually winding that down because I'm at a point where I'm just not, they don't interest me as much anymore. What I like to talk about is what I'm talking about with you, is just running a business and thinking about how you can maximize your life using tools like Excel, but also, where does Excel fit in the overall picture of what you're trying to do? Is it like, you use Excel to help a client out, but are you using it to help you with your finances? Are you using it to keep track of things when you go out? How do you like make decisions, right? Or can you create a model in Excel to help you make a decision? So there are ways in which we can use it in our own life. I think people are like, after they do work, they want to shut it off at home. I don't really blame them. Or some people just have anxiety about using it for themselves. They'd rather someone pay them who explains to them what to do. But I really want to show people that they can take the skills that they have and leverage them to make a life that they want. So thinking outside just like client solutions, but things like making money. I think that is very important now, as I'm really throwing myself into entrepreneurship. So you asked again, like I want to learn. So I read like 6 books a month. That's like across physical book, Kindle, and then, a lot of audiobooks as well. So, I use Google Sheets to track my books. I have a certain goal of the ones I want to read and the percentages. Up until recently, Google Sheets had the better check boxes, but now Excel has the better ones. But I use spreadsheets for everything. And so I want to show people how they can do that and really just leverage these skills that they're giving to businesses for themselves to make money, to live the life that they want, have a sense of self-determination. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I use spreadsheets for everything as well. Everything. I'm a Google Sheets person, so now I'm interested why Excel has now, taken over.
Yeah, I mean, like Excel, they're doing a good job. They're kind of like answering a lot of the needs that web has created. Google Sheets still wins on the web game. I mean, Google Sheets is just so simple, so easy. And And yeah, but like I do think Excel with the new formulas, the things that they're doing now, it's really going to become a much more dynamic and flexible product. I used to be a formula wizard, but I see the stuff people are doing with lambdas, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, I I feel like I remember like back in my Excel TV days, we interviewed Miko Yuck. Like this was like maybe 2014, and she runs BI Brains. I think she's still doing that. But I remember I did this like big formula thing, and she was like, "Whoa, that's incredible! How'd you do that?" And she's creating dashboards, and I thought, it's not that hard, and blah blah blah. But now I feel what she was saying because like now it's like 10 years later, and I'm watching what people are doing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is some next level stuff.
Cool to see like how much more it'll progress.
VBA is probably going to have its place, but a lot of stuff is being done with formulas now. I still have this view that a lot of it's just going to go to web, and that Excel is just going to become a shell, like a GUI shell that is mainly done over the web. So it's faster because it's already like pre-built, doesn't have to render everything. The same way you can use the LinkedIn app, let's say, or an app on your phone. But ultimately, I mean, why would you ever want to process something locally where it's going to be slow? Like there's all this stuff about volatile functions that I wrote about in my book. So a volatile function causes like immediate recalc of your spreadsheet, which causes it to slow down. But running on the cloud, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I've thought about migrating to using Notion, but I'm like, no, I am so comfortable in my spreadsheets.
Yes. You're not the only person. I now know like you're like the fourth person who said, like I know another company, they were using Notion, they went back to Excel. I know some Excel content creator, she's using Excel, or maybe she's using Sheets, but like we were using Notion for a little bit. We've just basically migrated everything back to Excel. And then we use Trello. I would say I don't really use Trello. My assistant uses Trello. She's very good at it. I'm not good at Trello, but that's why she's there. So she does an excellent job of like keeping everything all tracked. But like the newsletters, the content, all of that, we have a big Google Sheet every week. There's the date, and then like a check, like did I approve it? Is it gone out? Notes, etc. And it's just beautiful to watch this thing grow.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there that maybe want to build a business for themselves and become a digital nomad, what are your recommendations for them?
Sure. So, okay. So where do we start here? So there's two ways to become a digital nomad here, right? The first is that you can work for a company that allows you to do remote work. And in fact, that is going to be the easiest way. These companies pay a lot of money. Yeah, like assuming you get a job with it. I know that like jobs are kind of tight right now, but that would be the easiest route in that could help you achieve at least part of this lifestyle. You're not your own boss, but you can stay at hostels. You can stay at different apartments. I meet tons of digital nomads, particularly people who do things like Excel, like coding. Any of that lends itself very well to remote work. And so that's the first way to do it. Now, if you want to start a business and do it, this is going to be a little harder. And so I would not recommend traveling until you get what they would call traction. So traction just means that the business model is working and you are getting reliable income that allows you to predict what your future income is going to be. And in that space, you have a lot more ability to make this your lifestyle and to do it smartly. And no, I'm not saying you can't take on debt or go crazy, put on credit cards, but know that you have income coming in if you take that risk. Because, and again, I'm not telling people to do this, but I do fundamentally believe that like the value you can create yourself does vastly outweigh the interest that you would pay on a credit card. Again, don't go out and go crazy. Please don't do that. I have good credit. I like having a high credit score. But it's just that belief, like if you need to do things like that, and you need to pull the trigger, then like that's the way you need to think. If you're not there yet, then you're not ready to be a digital nomad with yourself as your own boss in the way that I'm doing it. So I'm not an independent contractor. Like I'm doing this to sustain. Like I guess a third way is you can just carve off some time where you can live a little bit more simply, take the contracts as you get them. You can go to Thailand. You can go Mexico City, sounds really cool these days. Brazil is the next place I think I'm going to check out. All these places I think are far less expensive than the US and people are there doing it. But in that case, they're doing it for a small slice in time, and then they're going to end up going back to the corporate world or their normal world and look back very fondly on those days.
Yeah. for the general audience out there? Do you have any final words of encouragement?
I would say just keep your foot on the gas. Like the issue that we have today is that, let's say someone wants to go work out, then they go to Instagram and they're just loaded with all these tricks and like tips and hacks, but they don't really work unless like you're already dialed in. So like, if you're already counting your calories, you're already drinking enough water, you're getting enough sleep, all those things, like even if you're not counting calories, let's say, you're just doing the basics of sleep, exercise, then these things may give you an edge, let's say in a competition, maybe. But someone wants to go in and they start doing all these things because they think they're just going to throw themselves at it hard. And what I would say is to take a major step back and realize it's not about what you can get like done and like this whole thing with 75 hard, right? Like in 75 days, like you must be kidding. Like you need to think 10 years. Like think 10 years, all right? You won't care. Like if you think on the 10-year plan, then you won't care that you started your business and then it didn't kind of work out, and then you took a year off being upset at yourself, and then something else happened. You started up again, then you failed again. Like by year 7, all those failures are part of your story. Like they're inseparable with your own success of that moment. So you have to think long term. You're not going to care that you took a break for like a month, but in these moments we beat ourselves up and then we just give up. So I would really say that to really think long term, if you make this decision, it's not about where you're going to be in just a few weeks or a few months. It's rather, where are you going to be in 10 years?
That's fantastic advice. I'm encouraged right now.
Yeah, go out there and like I would say, like push the ball forward every day, keep your foot on the gas. Just don't let your foot off the gas. Like if you don't have time to think about your business, think about it in the shower for 10 seconds, okay? That's going to put you forward. Like we understand compounding interest. Every day if you just compound a little bit, it will get the momentum you're looking for. And like that momentum is so important because momentum is the enemy of self-sabotage. If you try to self-sabotage momentum, it will run you over. So like you need to get that momentum strong enough that your self-sabotaging habits are just like, they can't stand a chance.
Well, thank you so very much, Jordan, for coming on the show and sharing all this wonderful advice with us. If
For
anyone
sure.
has any questions for you, where can they find and or follow you?
Okay, we got 2 spots. So let's see here. I'm going to try to line my finger up. Instagram, if you want to follow my cool shots, digital nomad journey, post a lot of stuff to my stories. This is like real time what I'm doing, all the fun stuff like dancing here in Brazil, or not Brazil, sorry, dancing Brazilian like dances in here in Portugal, eating like lots of different food, meeting all these cool people. And then here, if you want to look me up on LinkedIn, you can go there. If you have questions, I would say LinkedIn is the best place for these sorts of questions. Maybe if you have questions about my Instagram, you can ask them there. But LinkedIn, best place for now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. And as always, folks, happy learning.
Yes, happy learning. Enjoy.